welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Weekly. I'm your host, Chris Jester, and joined by me tonight we have three returning panelists. We have Craig Kellerman. Craig, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. We won't talk about any Weather Talk Weekly this week, so Mike doesn't make any jokes about that.
We're getting another snowstorm.
No snowstorm. Oh, no, don't say it. We also have from the Pacific Northwest joining us again, Josh Gomez. Josh, how are you doing?
Hey, pretty good about you guys.
Good. I didn't have to work this whole weekend, so that's nice.
That's always fun.
Yeah. And then joining us from Florida, once again, we have Neil Whelan. Neil, how are you doing? Missed having you last week.
Yeah, I was out of town. But it's good to be back.
All right, awesome. Well, we got a ton of crap to talk about this week in comparison to last week, so we're going to jump right into it. Some Major League Baseball news. It's good to have baseball season back. Big change is on a one-year trial for this year. The MLB is kind of banning home plate collisions. They're not full-on banning them. There's a few small things here and there. The one big exception is if the catcher has possession of the ball and a runner attempting to score may not deviate from his direct pathway to the plate in order to initiate contact with the catcher or other player covering home plate. So basically, you can't go out of your way to make contact with the catcher. You can't move out of your path of movement. If you're coming from third base to home, you can't move out of the way to make contact with the catcher. You have to stay down your direct path. Does anyone a big baseball fan want to jump into that first? I know Neil and Josh follow baseball. I'm not sure about Craig. Neil, do you want to start off?
Yeah.
Personally, I like it because I don't like the concept of trying to initiate contact to crash into the goalie. I mean, the catcher, I was about to go into my next which is a lot of the same in the NHL, where the goalies are getting run over frequently at the net. So it's a similar concept. And the catcher position is already the most demanding position on the baseball field as it is. It messes with players' knees, hips, and ankles especially. So any extra collisions that are initiated that way are really unnecessary. I think the prime example that the league looked into in regards to this is what happened to Buster Posey a couple of years ago, where he broke his legs early in the year and missed the whole season. Mm-hmm. So I think this could be a good thing so long as it's enforced correctly.
Correct. All right, we have a caller in from the 407 area code. We'll go to that caller. Caller from the 407, where are you from, and what do you want to talk about tonight?
Hey, Chris, I made it on.
Hey, Nick Cardone from Florida. Nick, how are you doing, man? Nick was on our first episode. As well, good to have you back, Nick. How are you doing?
Glad to be back. I just got back from school. I had a couple classes this past weekend, so I'm happy to be back on the show, though.
That's great. All right, well, we're talking about the Major League Baseball banning home plate collisions. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Right now, I like the idea. I want to actually see how it plays out and how the new replay system is also going to play into that as well. Mm-hmm. I know that some situations can be reviewed if they're not sure. I'm positive they're going to have kind of like the targeting rule where they go, if it's questionable, call it first and then review it later. So I think that could actually have a determining factor too as to how the rule may be altered after this season. But so far, I like it. I just want to see it play out.
Well, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, it's a one-year trial basis, so we'll see how it works out. I like that they're taking player safety into consideration, and people are always going to be skeptical at first when changes are being made, to a sport that's as old as baseball. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Some people might say it's kind of like a wussification of it.
Yeah.
But I think that they're really, like you said, they're going after concussions and injuries and stuff like that. I mean, you got a guy who's running balls into the home plate, and he's going to slide right into the catcher. Somebody easily get hurt, Buster Posey. But I don't know. I think they're going after the runners. Basically, I think if you're not going through your target, you can only stay on the line. If you go outside the line, you'll get an out. It's automatic. So. That's how they're going to control that.
Yeah, and kind of just to build on that is just I think I think the Buster Posey thing, who is one of the more he's one of the more recognizable baseball players in the majors right now, and I think it's just that on top of it, just the home plate collisions, it's just basically taking an unnecessary risk. And I think just Bud Selig, who I think is, in my opinion, he's the best commissioner of all the major sports. He understands that, and he just with the player safety stuff, it's just more often than not the home plate collisions don't affect the outcome of the play at the plate anyway. It's kind of unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is an excerpt from page 7.13 from the rules document, and these are rules that the umpires can use. Comments the umpires can use to interpret the rule. The first comment is the failure by the runner to make an effort to touch the plate, the runner's lowering of the shoulder, or the runner pushing through with his hands, elbows, or arms would support a determination that the runner deviated from the pathway in order to initiate contact with the catcher in violation. The comment players who slide appropriately are not in violation of the rule. The second comment says that unless the catcher is in possession of the ball, the catcher cannot block the pathway of the runner as he is attempting to score. The runner shall be declared safe if the catcher violates that provision. In addition, it is not a violation if the catcher blocks the pathway of the runner in order to field a throw, and the umpire determines that the catcher could not have fielded the ball without blocking the pathway of the runner, and that contact with the runner was unavoidable. So again, if it's intentional, if you're trying to go out of your way to strike the catcher, then yeah, it's automatically an out, like Craig said. Otherwise, anything that's unintentional, just legitimate accidental contact, perfectly fine. So I don't think it's going to change things too much, and I don't think it's going to determine outcomes of games. I just think it's a necessary thing to eliminate, lower the amount of concussions and whatnot. I think it's a good idea. I'm on board with it for right now. We'll have to see how it pans out, but to me it seems like a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it changes the strategy of, the batters?
Oh, I'm sure people are
overall?
going to try to take advantage of it every time there's a rule change. You'll see teams try to do whatever they can to play within the rule, but find loopholes.
Yeah, but I also think that I honestly think in the grand scheme of things, the base with this rule change is going to be similar to the crown of the helmet rule in the NFL, where it's made it a bigger. It's made it into a big deal in the off season, but I don't think it's very rarely going to actually come into effect in an actual game.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyone else have anything else they want to elaborate on regarding?
You think it would be
I would say that I think it's definitely different from the crown of the helmet rule, because that's very much open to interpretation, and anytime there's a big hit, the defensive player seems to get penalized. This more or less seems to be a case of, unless the runner clearly goes out of his way to crash into the catcher, then it'll be business as usual, which personally I think is good because it's going to keep the game as it is, but keep less from being taken at the catcher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I just meant about the comparison was just how when that rule came out last year, there was a big debate. It was a headline topic on everything, and this rule is don't see the crown of the helmet rule was called that rule came into effect once this year. I think it was I want to say Ryan Matthews that got called for it, but other than that, it really was a non-factor in the season. I think it's going to be just something similar as far as enforcement.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to move on. Nick, if you're welcome to stay on the line until we have a plethora. If we have a plethora of callers where we can't keep too many people on, then you'll still be able to listen. But for now, you're welcome to stay on as long as you like. Just let us know. We're going to move on to some NBA talk. This week, the Clippers made two big acquisitions in signing Danny Granger, who was bought out by the Philadelphia 76ers, he was traded to the Pacers, and Glenn Davis was bought out by the Orlando Magic. Those are two pretty significant acquisitions for the Clippers, and I think it makes them one of the top three most dangerous teams in not only the Western Conference, but the entire NBA. Neil, what do you think?
I'm not necessarily convinced that the Granger signing will be a big impact because he's never been that good a defensive player, and his shot is not falling right now. I believe he's just over 30% shooting from the field and from behind the three-point line on the year. But I do like the signing of Glenn Davis. The Clippers' backup big men were very, very lacking. I believe their best one that wasn't starting was Byron Mullins. And provided Davis is recovered from the broken foot, then I think he can make a very significant impact off the bench. I saw a decent amount of Magic games the last few years, and the Celtics were on TV all the time when he was there. So I feel like I've seen enough of him that I can say he can help a team in a lot of positive ways. So he, I think, can help a lot. Granger, not too much necessarily.
See, one thing I'll add about Granger is, even 2 years ago, before Paul George became the man, Granger was the Pacers' best player. And if he's shooting low right now, it's because basketball is a sport of runs, and you can have a cold shot for a little while, and then you can heat up later. I think once he gets some chemistry with the team, he's going to be a very dangerous addition to an already very talented Clippers team. If he's coming off the bench and bringing his contributions, with his size and his scoring ability, you can't tell me that the Clippers aren't a better team with they upgrade from Anton Jamison to Danny Granger. You know what I mean?
Oh, that I agree. Jamison can't play defense to save his life.
So, while he may not be the biggest acquisition, he was the best player to switch teams. And the Clippers got him and then the second best player to switch teams in Glenn Davis. So I think that is a coup for them at the trade deadline to add two such talented players to their roster. And I think they're going to give the Thunder and the Spurs a run for their money in the Western Conference title picture. I think the Rockets aren't there yet, as much as I like them. And obviously the East is still a two-team race.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah,
I
wouldn't be surprised at all to see a Clippers-Pacers final. I think that would be really exciting and really surprising to a lot of people. Like, you never thought you'd see the Clippers in the finals in your lifetime, and there's a chance. I'd love to see Chris Paul get that ring. That guy is so good. I think Chris Paul, to me, is probably the third best player in the NBA after LeBron and Durant. He's such a good defender. He's such a good scorer. He's so good at everything he does. I very high on Chris Paul, and I'd really like to see him, getting a chance to get that ring. I mean, I was really high on the Thunder, but they're dropping games to the Cavs and the Magic. I don't know what's wrong with them.
I always love to go for the underdog.
Their team timing being off on account of Westbrook just coming back in and trying to fit back in.
That's a good point. Craig, you were saying?
I said I always try to give it to the underdog, especially the teams that are trying to, come up from the ruins,
Yeah, absolutely. Think about a team like the Los Angeles, the other team in LA, even a few years ago, and now the Lakers would be lucky to have half the wins that the Clippers do.
Lakers are half the team they were 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to keep up winning when one player's making $50 million. He's not even on the freaking court right now.
Good point. So, Josh, what do you think is going to happen with the championship picture? Do you think this gives the Clippers a significant upgrade, or do you think it's still Thunder Spurs in the West?
I think it does give them upgrade. I mean, the Clippers, honestly, they're I'm not going to say they're the best team in the West, but they're one of my favorite teams to watch, and they've added two players with finals experience, which is only going to help Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, who are still, Chris Paul's been around a while, but they're still pretty young, and Blake Griffin, but the thing with Blake Griffin before this year, the big gripe on him was he didn't really have a well-rounded game, and he's playing, I think, the best basketball he's ever played. And then you add a guy like Danny Granger, who's like most shooters, he's very streaky. It wouldn't surprise me if 2 months down the road where his shooting percentage jumps 25%, because that's just the way, like you mentioned, the way basketball is. And Glenn Davis, where he isn't a premier big man in the league. In the league, he's probably a top 10 center.
Mm-hmm. Nick, do you have any thoughts?
I agree with that, and as well, just a quick question. Didn't Danny Granger also battle injury lately? Didn't that affect him too?
Absolutely.
I think that
injuries
if he can get healthy,
and also
he can get healthy and actually be able to come off the bench and contribute, get his shot up. I agree. The Clippers are going to be one of the more dangerous teams in the West, and San Antonio and Oklahoma City might not want to overlook them.
No, you can't overlook anybody in the NBA, but when you got as much talent as the Clippers do, and they're coming up, that's scary for them.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on to a slightly less serious conversation, but it's a topic nonetheless. LeBron James has been wearing this mask to protect his broken nose. I think he only wore it one game, and the NBA already got on his case. He looked like Batman.
Yeah.
He looks like Dr. Doom.
the black mask, and they're getting on his butt about it, and he's fighting it. He said he'd wear the clear mask, but he's fighting it, trying to get it overruled. Because it matches the team's jerseys or whatever. He says, I think it's silly for them to get in. There's no reason not to let him.
I just thought it looked cool.
Yeah, I do too. They're already selling T-shirts with him wearing the mask.
Does it really matter what it looks like as long as it's doing the job and protecting his nose?
Mhm. That was my point.
That's the way I see it.
It doesn't matter what color the mask is if it's protecting his nose.
Yeah, and how when you mentioned selling T-shirts, if I'm the NBA, I start selling LeBron masks, like the mask itself, people would buy that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, they would.
Just like
Especially
thousands of people in the stands with the masks on.
Oh,
that'd be like a kind of pro wrestling like, but that would look really intimidating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he looks kind of scary with that shit.
Yeah, like what Miami should do for like some game like where they you know how the Thunder they'll hand out T-shirts, hand out masks and have like 20. Can you imagine a game like where the Heat or where their all black uniforms have 20,000 masks in the crowd? That would look really kick-ass.
That would be fantastic. I would love if they brought back the All Blacks on top of that.
Yeah, you know,
I would actually want to go to that game just to see it.
Yeah, like even being there in person or even just watching it on TV would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that they're overreacting a little. The color of his mask doesn't matter. What it is they don't want to bring attention. They don't want him bringing unnecessary attention to himself, wearing a different color mask, looking like a superhero villain, whatever. And it's stupid.
Yeah, you know.
That's
LeBron bringing attention to himself.
Yeah, right?
It's not like he got arrested for gun charges or something.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing because if it was a clear mask, I think of Rip Hamilton.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, he always wore that. He always looked cool.
Yeah, like whenever
People let anyone wear a black mask though.
Mhm. Yeah, it's silly. They're coming down so hard on him about the mask thing, but he's complying with the rules.
Yeah, it kind of just it's like kind of like similar to when Cam Newton this last year got fined for wearing an Under Armour visor. Like it's a non-story.
It is, yeah. But it's fun to talk about nonetheless.
Especially since it's for safety. Like he doesn't want to screw up his nose anymore than it is.
Yeah, like it's not like it's just like something cosmetic, like a something. It's something that was medically provided.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
right, well,
there's actually a reason.
Yeah. All right. Nick mentioned it could be worse. He could be getting arrested for gun possession charges, and that's actually what we're going to talk about next. The Knicks point guard, the Knicks point guard Raymond Felton, felony gun possession charges. Now, two important things to keep in mind. He did not fire a gun on anyone. He just owns it. It was purchased legally in North Carolina. It was just unregistered in New York, which is what makes it illegal in the first place.
Yeah.
He has no prior offenses, and he will likely not face any jail time. And the only reason that this is even a story is because he was accused of threatening his wife with the gun. And the important detail here is they're going through a divorce proceeding, and it's very convenient for her to go into his drawer in his apartment on, I think it was at the west side of town, pull the gun out of the drawer, show the police where it was, and then say, he tried to use this gun on me. Because they're going through a divorce, and she wants her NBA player boyfriend's money. So, unless some kind of evidence comes out where they fired it on her or anything or something.
He didn't pull a Gilbert
if you're going into
anybody, so.
I was wondering if we'd get a Gilbert Arenas reference.
Yeah, if you're going into professional sports.
That's two knuckleheads in the locker room posing with them, practically.
Yeah.
A little different.
So I wonder if he started hanging out with Plexico Burgers.
Oh, if he turns it on himself.
Cheddar Bob's in the
Neil.
nightclub.
Neil, did you ever get that text I sent you about that joke I made about it?
Yeah.
What was the joke? Go ahead, tell us.
You might as well take the T out of Felton and start calling him Raymond Felon. Even I couldn't resist it.
I've actually seen a couple people with custom jerseys with that the last few days.
And no wonder the Knicks are like struggling with stuff like this happening. And there was a couple years ago with Amari beating up a fire extinguisher. They're a mess.
They're always in the headlines for the wrong reasons. That's New York for you.
Yeah, it's never like
some New York teams.
Yeah, and then Carmelo every other day is getting blamed for something.
Every other day, no matter what he says, it's Carmelo's leaving. Carmelo's leaving.
Yeah, you know, Yeah, I mean, he could be helping a little old lady cross the street and then be wondering why he's not working on his defense or something. It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's getting very, very ridiculous. Kind of like what was going on with LeBron before the first championship.
Yeah, I was going to mention that where Carmelo and LeBron both are the. I can't think of any other athletes that are like this that, they can't, walk out outside of their houses without every little thing they do getting, analyzed. Carmelo Anthony could be at the grocery store and they wonder why he buys Cheerios over Frosted Flakes or something like that. It's asinine at this point. Yeah, and just not just New York, just in general, athletes, they seem to be overanalyzed to the point where it's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, New York media is one of the worst. You could have a streak of 10 good games.
Lives up there.
Yeah, you could have a streak of 10 good games, but that one bad game, you'll hear about it forever.
Yeah, Jeremy Lin. I think part of that's just social media. We're like in not only the 24-hour news cycle, we're in the social media age where, something breaks, 5 minutes later it's a trending topic on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, that's the problem, and that's what some of the things you have to deal with when you're a big name athlete, whether it's in the NBA, the NFL, whatever. You have to worry about your image and what people think of you, and people don't take that into consideration when they realize it must be great getting paid millions of dollars for a basketball player.
And interesting when you mentioned the New York media, can you imagine what the New York media would do if Joe Namath was playing today?
Yeah.
They would run him out of town.
Oh God!
They would treat him the same way they treated Mark Sanchez.
Yeah, I mean,
that's precisely what they would do.
Yeah, like if he made that guarantee, if a player made a guarantee like he did in Super Bowl III in today's, sports world, it would be, unless they went out and played the game of their lives, they would get crucified.
Actually, Plaxico kind of said we're going to win and then gave the score right before Super Bowl.
Oh, didn't he? Oh, did he? I remember hearing something about that. Then it was like we're going to win whatever it was.
Day.
And then Tom Brady is like, we're only going to score, it was like 21 points or whatever it was, or something like that.
17 points.
Oh, yeah, what
was it? You score 17 points?
Yeah, and then.
Oh, you scored 14.
Yeah, well. I think just on an unrelated topic, I think that kind of helped. After that, I noticed Tom Brady started to kind of try to repair his image. Where before that, he was like in the Super Bowl too. I remember where he didn't shake Eli Manning's hand before the game, and he was basically the villain in the NFL at the time. And after that, it seems like he's kind of become more humble.
He turned face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he lost his whole
People don't dislike you as much when you lose.
That's true.
Yeah. They kind of embraced that villainous role that year.
Yeah.
I think the team as a whole embraced it, and then they got humbled losing the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And some of the thing was like with the villain thing was in the NBA when that first year that the Miami Big Three was together, they were trying to play the villain role and it just didn't work for them.
No.
LeBron, I guess it's some people want to. The thing with LeBron, it's not a bad thing. He just wants people to like him. It just seems like, and he doesn't like being hated.
Yeah, see, what it was that there was all that hype put on the poor guy when he was in high school.
Exactly. I think I mentioned that a couple weeks ago, where you're basically he was a sophomore in high school, or it was his sophomore junior high school. He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You're going to start thinking you're the shit too.
People start telling you're going to be the greatest of all time. You're the next Michael Jordan, whatever, blah blah blah.
Sports Illustrated
exactly.
Put him on the cover and with the headline reading "The Chosen One."
It wasn't. Yeah, I knew it was something along those
teenager.
If any 16-year-old doesn't get cocky from that, I don't even understand how.
They aren't human.
So I mean, the first few years he was in Cleveland and he was lighting it up too. And people get a little mad. They're haters when you're successful and people are jealous of that success. They hate you, no matter what it is. I mean, there are other reasons to hate players and franchises, but look at all the franchises that are the most hated. The Steelers, the Patriots, the Yankees, the Lakers.
Well, in New England's case, there's a very good reason in account of their head coach being very unlikable and very lacking in class.
I know you're biased, but I like I said.
He does that. Belichick does that to the media on purpose. He hates the media so much. That's the treatment he gives them. How do we know he's that way in?
And the funny thing is with the Belichick stuff, with his press conferences and everything, people kind of give him crap for him, but the media, they constantly ask him yes or no questions that he can answer yes or no. Like, they never give him, they'll be like, oh, is Gronk going to play? No. Or it's never like, stuff that you need to elaborate on.
Oh, everybody wanted to talk at once. Now nobody wants to talk. Craig, do you have anything you want to add, Craig?
Yeah, I just want to let these guys duke it out over here. I mean, jeez.
This has gotten bad. Now we're talking about we're talking about Raymond Felton.
No, you're wrong. No, your team sucks.
All right. Well, I'm sure Raymond Felton appreciates us not talking about him anymore. I'm sure he's heard enough about it. We're gonna move on. Adam Silver, the new commissioner of the NBA, has been talking about a lot of like little potential changes to the NBA he thinks would be cool, and nothing like super serious or concrete. Just a lot of ideas he has, and I think a lot of them are really cool. Some of them are a little like drastic, but like here's a list of some of them. Some of them are out there, but if you guys want to elaborate on any of them, what you think about them. A bigger court, a 4-point shot, basically just a longer line. The farther back from the 3-point line, that would be worth 4 points. Implementing a new draft, because we all agree there are flaws in the lottery for sure. Changes to the minimum age being requirement in the NBA. He suggested 20 being the best age, but he also said there was room for leeway with that depending on the player and the situation and whatnot, but he thinks that players should have to go through some maturity before they come to the NBA, and it would eliminate more busts and whatnot. Sure. And make players go to college, help them try to get an education in case their NBA career doesn't work out. He also discussed having more playoff teams, having 2 teams that would be the 9th and 10th seed play a 7-game series to determine a play-in. I think that's really cool. Or, sorry, the 8th and 9th seed have a play-in series. Then that way you eliminate the luck factor, too. The better team is going to win a 7-game series. And sometimes there are teams that have like a player, like Chicago. If the East wasn't so weak, okay, let's say Chicago is without Derrick Rose for the majority of the season, and they get him back towards the end of the season. Do they not deserve it? And say they were on the bubble and they would be like the 9th seed. Do they not deserve a chance to play that horrible 8th seed team and have a chance to still make the playoffs? How intimidating would a team like Chicago with Derrick Rose as the 8th seed be? You know what I mean? So those are scenarios that he talked about. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
The first thing I want to say
real quick, you said a change in the draft lottery?
Yeah, one of the things he mentioned would be like someone suggested a 30-year rotation where each team would have a set position that they pick from. And the problem with that is players setting up when they become eligible for the draft, so they try to get drafted by a specific team. I don't think that specific idea would work, but I do have a problem with the lottery. I don't think, first of all, the worst team doesn't always get the first pick anyway, and that should be how it is. The way it's designed in the NFL is perfect, and I also think you encourage tanking.
Yeah, because I think it has to do with like there's some formula that's like the win-loss percentage means if you lose more games, you get higher. It's confusing. And I've also heard with the lottery thing, the only teams that are actually in the lottery room when the drawing happens or whatever are the lottery teams, which kind of, I don't know. If you're going to do a lottery, I think all 30 teams should be accounted for in that room.
Well, technically, the lottery is just the teams that didn't make the playoffs. So the 14 teams that don't make the playoffs are all lottery teams.
I honestly have no idea exactly how it works. I mean, I just know I've just heard for years that there's always those it's an inexact science.
If anyone has any thoughts regarding any of the things we're talking about tonight, you can call into the show at 713-955-0363. We'd love to have you on.
And also if they talk about the way the draft is set up now, it'd be interesting. There was some years, say a team like the Clippers win the NBA championship, and that happens to be the year they have the number 1 pick. I don't know, some weird things. I think from a fan perspective, I think it'd be kind of cool, but just kind of like, I don't know.
It would get a little goofy. Personally, I like the idea that Jeff Van Gundy pitched because him and Stan were on the radio, I heard, not that long ago, and Stan hit the nail on the head. If you look at the roster, for example, that the 76ers have put together this season, his exact words were, you cannot in any way, shape, or form say they're trying to win games with the roster they put out there this season. It's a disgrace and it's embarrassing. I just saw something a moment ago. They lost all 11 games in the month of February by an average margin of 18.5 points a game. And Brian Colangelo, the former Raptors GM, has openly said in 2011-12, the lockout season, that he tried to tank the season to get a higher draft pick. So the draft lottery, all it does is encourage teams to try to lose, the same way it was before the draft lottery was put in place. Basketball is so much longer a season than football, and the talent is so much more concentrated at the top that you can't have a draft set up the same way as the NFL because you can find talented players everywhere. Jeff Van Gundy's idea, which I greatly agree with, is reverse order the lottery for non-playoff teams where the best record outside of the lottery, outside of the playoffs, gets the highest pick, because that encourages everyone to try their best to win. Yeah. Encourages everyone to put their best product on the floor. And as opposed to having a team like Milwaukee, who's sitting at 9-42 in an unmarketable market that, quite frankly, nobody cares about, and I believe they might be the only team that's as uninteresting to most casual fans as the Atlanta Hawks, you have them outwardly trying to win games, bringing in important players, and there'd be reason for the fans to care. Because if management doesn't care, then how do you sell that hope to the fans? It's a big
problem with that idea is then you have the 9th and 8th and 7th and seeds all trying to not make the playoffs because they want the best pick.
Yeah, and also just if you want to, if you want to kind of just, you mentioned the 7-game play-in thing. He mentioned that's just ridiculous. The NBA playoffs are already too long. Would you really want to wait? Would you really want to wait an extra week to figure out who the Thunder or the Heat are going to play? I mean, it's like I think the way the MLB playoffs are with the wild card teams are fine, but just if you're going to do, I want to see one game or maybe a 3-game series, not a full series that can go 7 games.
The difference too in that is the NBA has 8 playoff teams from each conference already, and baseball has like 5.
With the NBA, over half the league makes the playoffs already. You really want to add to that?
That's true. The thing is, with the NBA especially, is that the playoffs is what gets the most views. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's when everybody's watching it, so they want to prolong it as much as possible.
Yeah.
But do you care about a playoff game featuring the Bobcats and the Knicks? Because
exactly. There are already enough running jokes about the Eastern Conference as it is.
Maybe it would work better in a few years when the East is a little deeper.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just like every year in the Eastern Conference playoffs, it seems like there's always 3 or 4 teams where you just watch when you're watching them get ran off the court for over 7 games. You're just thinking, how the hell did they make the playoffs? And this is supposed to be what the best the NBA has to offer.
Well, regarding the draft thing, we all have our opinions as to what's wrong with the lottery and how we could fix it and whatnot, but there seems to be a problem with every suggestion you could give. And I think one of the things Neil said were like, well, the Bucks, for example, don't deserve Andrew Wiggins. The way you get better and the way you bring people into to want to watch your team is by getting someone like that.
And
if the Bucks don't get a chance to get him when they're 9-42 and desperately need him, then there's no chance of turning it around. I would rather him go there than the Sixers. Like, the Sixers are clearly trying to lose on purpose. Like, they bought out Granger without even thinking about it because they had no intention of having him. They wanted to get more money off their books. They didn't want a good player on their team. They wanted to tank as much as possible.
And also on the when he mentioned the market thing, the Bucks not being an appealing market, it also brings up the theory about certain draft lotteries being fixed, like the year LeBron went to Cleveland, the year Kyrie went to Cleveland after LeBron left, Blake Griffin going to the second biggest media market in the country. Like, there are examples like that where it just seems kind of oddly coincidental that Blake Griffin, who was basically being billed as one of the he's turned into one of the more marketable NBA players, and he just so happens to be in Hollywood.
Shocked you didn't mention Derrick Rose going to Chicago.
Exactly.
The first year of the draft lottery, the Knicks get Patrick Ewing when David Stern grew up a Knicks fan.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there are examples like that where it also seemed like with the tanking thing, the year the Bobcats didn't get the number 1 pick when they were that Bobcats team. I want to say it was the year that Anthony Davis came out. It seemed like they were basically tanking, and they still didn't get the number 1 pick. I don't think.
But that was after the lockout season, the 2012.
Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, I knew it was a call.
They set the record for the lowest win percentage in NBA history, and that team was just abysmal.
Yeah, and I remember about that too. I can't remember what NBA. I think it was one of the NBA analysts basically saying that no player on the Bobcats roster would make another roster.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Their best player shot 36% from the field that season.
Yeah, and the Bobcats are a perfect example of great players not always being great talent evaluators.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, Jordan.
Did Jordan's run as the Wizards general manager show that already?
Yeah, well, when you have as much power and basically sway in the way the NBA is, as Michael Jordan, you get as many GM jobs as you want.
He can do whatever he wants in the NBA forever.
Yeah, I mean,
or MLB, or
he can't hit a baseball to save his life.
Yeah, I think someone mentioned. Yeah. I think Neil's one that mentioned when we were talking about the Mount Rushmore thing, where he was no athlete's ever been marketed better than Michael Jordan.
Absolutely not.
Definitely not.
He's like a Renaissance man when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there'll ever be an athlete as well known as Michael Jordan ever again.
It'll take a long time. It's the time period he played and what he was able to accomplish and everything.
And he came along right around the time the internet was starting to come around too. It's kind of also, I mean, it's not directly correlated, but he was really that generation of athletes was the first really. They were like in the 90s. That was when everything kind of just like exploded.
Yeah, the both of you hit the nail perfectly on the head. The internet had just been coming up, and it hadn't become dig into everyone's personal life. It was show the highlights and show great plays all the time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't over-scrutinized and over-analyzed.
Yeah,
when he retired, the media took the objective of we're going to tear down every next greatest player because we don't want anyone to be a bigger star than this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like a conspiracy.
No, it's good marketing. It's very good. It's very smart marketing.
Yeah, and I believe David Stern, before he was a commissioner, was like a marketing guy. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but
he has a background in marketing.
Oh, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, that's a good skill to have when you're running a sports league.
$1 billion industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is why I personally think he's the best figurehead that a sports league has had. He knew how to market his league perfectly.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully the new guy who's taken over from Adam Silver does just as good of a job, or at least close. That's all we can really hope for. We're going to move away
hopefully he learns from Stern.
Bring back the Sonics.
Bring back the Sonics. We're going to move away from the NBA talk now and move on to some NFL, everyone's favorite sport. Sad news this week. Panthers left tackle Jordan Gross retires after 11 years of service to the NFL. He was a great player, and I'm sure Josh is happy to know that he's gone.
Yeah.
Was Josh a fan of?
Falcons.
Oh.
So that's, good for him. That's now a new weakness the Panthers are going to have to look over when they're considering their draft strategy and their free agent strategy. They're going to have to replace one of the best offensive linemen in the league's last decade.
Plus, with the Panthers, you also have heard that. I don't know if you guys have read about the story that Steve Smith, the face of the Panthers, might not be back next year.
Really? Like they would waive him, or he might retire?
Yeah. Or basically, they're from the article I read. It was on the NFL Around the League website. The GM and head coach Ron Rivera were kind of vague. Were like it's part of the evaluation process and this and that, and the different things basically are alluding to. From just what I read was they basically want him to take a pay cut or they're going to cut him. Which
can they afford to lose him though?
Yeah, I was going to mention that too because he's really the only receiver they've had for the last decade, and their number 2 and 3 receivers, Brandon LaFell and Ted Ginn Jr., are both free agents. They're going to really roll Armani Edwards out there.
Well, I got to figure if they let Steve Smith go, then they're going to re-sign the other two.
Yeah,
at least
one of them, yeah, and then probably draft a guy. Hopefully,
they definitely need help in that regard. One thing they did do to benefit themselves is they got Greg Hardy franchised, so that's good. They've locked him up for another year. I think they had to do that. They have to make sure.
They had no choice. You couldn't afford to lose him on the defense. No way.
Absolutely. That's the strength of the team.
Yeah, but to be fair with him, like I think 9 of his 15 sacks came against 2 teams. So
yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, they have to be sure before they give him the big long contract.
And
tie themselves down to him.
I think with the Greg Hardy thing too, they would have been damned if they did, damned if they didn't with him.
Because if they call the bluff wrong and he walks and goes somewhere else and just tears it up.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure that's something you're not happy about, is that he'll be back another year.
No, my God.
Terrorizing Matt Ryan every week.
Yeah,
2 weeks
9 sacks this year or something. There was 4 or 5. He sacked in the 2 games. He sacked Matt Ryan 5 times or 4 times or something like that.
And it gets worse for you because Jimmy Graham also got the franchise tag from the same.
Yeah, actually, and the thing with him too is, did you hear about where he's filing a grievance because he wants to be tagged as a wide receiver?
Really?
Yeah.
What?
It's a $5 million. Yeah, it's a $5 million difference because they're saying he lined up out wide on X amount of snaps and this and that.
Awesome. I believe it was the highest percentage of his snaps he lined up as a wide receiver. Yeah.
And there was it's a league thing. I don't know. It's going to go through the.
That's awesome. I hope he gets the wide receiver money. He deserves it, and it'll tie the things up.
Yeah. Even if he can't beat man coverage.
I mean, he doesn't have the speed receivers do. You know?
Yeah, but I mean,
size.
Yeah, he's just an athletic freak.
Absolutely, yeah. Probably, debatably, the best tight end in the league. Gronk could give him a run for his money if he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
He seemingly can't do that anymore, sadly for him.
Yeah, just 1 year. We'll see.
Yeah,
Tried
he broke his arm.
He
broke his arm in 2012, and he missed really the majority of this past year.
Yeah, and I've heard he's had 7 or 8 back surgeries since he was in college or something.
I don't know if it's that high. Is that more practically?
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't think it was that, but it was an abnormally high amount of surgeries on the back for someone as young as him.
Absolutely. And the Patriots can't afford to have that either because they already lost Hernandez and then
Hernandez is gone. They've got big money tied up in Gronkowski.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're going to – I mean, Vince Wilfork is the linchpin of their defense, and they don't know if he'll ever be the same guy. A guy that size, tearing his Achilles tendon. They've got 2 linebackers coming off of serious injuries, Mayo and Spikes.
God, Wilfork is so good. Some people don't know.
Yeah, he's one of the
defensive lineman in the NFL 9 times out of 10 is going to toil in anonymity. The real exceptions were guys like Warren Sapp and John Randall and Joe Green. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At least an interior lineman.
Yeah, I would say normally the defensive ends are the ones that because they put up the big sack numbers,
that's the reason the other ones get the attention is because they were able to put up the sack.
And
Chris Jester was another great example of this.
And kind of an interesting thing too about sacks too is really I think sacks O.C. Umenyiora said this and it was kind of controversial. He said sacks are overrated and they really are because the average NFL starting defensive end plays probably 50 or 60 snaps a game for 16 weeks. I actually did this number crunching before we came on the air. That's over 800 snaps, and say he gets 18 sacks, which is a phenomenal season. That's still less than 2% of total snaps.
Mm-hmm.
So
the thing is, some of you're not always going to be on a play where you'd have a chance to get a sack anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Different.
So I would say they're misleading for this simple reason. Defense on football, more than anything, it takes a complete team effort. You can be the best pass rusher in the world. I remember Julius Peppers in his prime had a 2-sack season. Sometimes you just get doubled all season long and don't get a chance.
Yeah, and I think
a great example this past year. Do you guys know who Calvin Pace is?
Yeah.
He had 10 sacks this past season, and 6.5 of them were of what I call the cleanup variety, where either he was unblocked or the quarterback stayed in the pocket for over 4 seconds. So the coverage held long enough that eventually somebody was going to get to it. And
also a perfect example of what kind of building on it. hate to sucker, but the Seahawks defense really no member of their front seven. I think most people, no one would consider anyone in that front seven elite, but that their pass rush was ferocious. This was a whole team effort.
Sometimes your best defense is a good offense too.
Yeah.
So, they railroad through fucking defenses themselves. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's always a high scoring game when they play.
Yeah, I think what's more important than the big numbers is just like quarterback pressures and making them take longer to throw the ball because they don't want to make a bad decision, and then that gives your coverage opportunities to get turnovers.
Those are also things that most casual fans don't look at. They just see the sack numbers or the defensive back interceptions, kind of quote Raheem Morris, stats are for losers at times. Because you can make them say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Statistics are positive in some ways because you can use it as a way to gauge how good a player was you didn't get to see, but you also can't live and die by the stats.
Yeah, that's my major beef with. I don't know if you guys know what Pro Football Focus is, but they grade every player. Like they give every offensive lineman a grade. Every player gets a grade, and it'll be like I'll just throw out this offensive tackle graded out as plus 4.6. What the hell does that mean? Explain it. I don't need a number to know that Joe Thomas is a damn good left tackle. It's ridiculous.
The thing is, there's no other necessarily accurate way to grade it.
Yeah.
It's just difficult to grade an offensive lineman's performance to put it on a stat sheet.
Yeah,
which is why a good example, Jerry Kramer is still not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and the other thing is also the casual fan, unless most casual fans don't watch the offensive line. I did just because when I played football for 8 years, I was an offensive lineman, so there's little but Joe Schmo in Pittsburgh isn't going to watch the offensive line. He's going to watch the receivers and the quarterbacks and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I try to keep my focus on when I'm watching a full football game. I try to keep my focus on different things throughout the game. You obviously can't focus on everything, but sometimes I'll just keep my eyes on the quarterback, see how long he'll hold the ball and stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll keep it on the lineman, see who's the one letting them through.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I try to keep attention on a lot of things.
I think it kind of just depends on the flow of the game and just how things happen. Just because as I watch a game on TV, it just kind of just depends on what the offense does and what the defense does to kind of what I pay attention to, which is. It's kind of sound like a plug, but that's why I love the NFL All 22 game film stuff that they have on their website, because you can watch basically because they give you can watch the coaches film, so you can if you want to say okay, so say this Texans and Colts game, I'll watch the two offensive lines. You can do that. You can watch these games over and over again, and if you have that kind of time, which I sometimes do, and it's just kind of fun. I think it's fun. I mean, it sounds nerdy, but I think it's really cool.
It sounds amazing. I'm drooling right now.
Just the way you kind of is that's kind of the way you really learn how to break down positions too is by watching game film.
Yeah. So there's people who watch the games. They're the people who just watch the Super Bowl. They sit on their couch and they're just kind of paying attention and they're like, oh, that guy had a big play and there's a score. And then there's the people that are studying the game and they're literally watching
looking for
all of the little things that are happening. Why is that happening?
I don't know what you guys, but which is interesting too is what end of the spectrum do you guys consider yourself on then?
I'm in the studying one. I do that crap all the time.
Yeah.
I never used to do it until I met you and Neil.
No, I started studying as soon as I started playing fantasy football.
Mm-hmm.
Fantasy football is a great thing too because I think me and Chris have talked about this before. Fantasy football gives you more. I've learned more about football because I play fantasy football.
Well, I learned more about players
because of fantasy football. I want to know, are my players really good, or is there just something going on these last few weeks that are making them do well?
Yeah.
That makes you a lot better owner of your team. You can figure out who's worth keeping and who's holding you down and who's worth drafting next year.
And I think if I never started playing fantasy football, I wouldn't have watched. I wouldn't know the difference between Julian Edelman and Andre Roberts or something.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been.
Oh, there's a receiver. Let me pick him up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I definitely think fantasy football helped make me want to watch other games more too. Because before, I'd watch the Vikings first, And then, like, if there's a really good matchup on, I'll go, okay, maybe I'll watch this Jets-Bears game. I don't know. But if I have a player playing in the game, I'm so much more into it.
Yeah. And I'll say, too, fantasy football is great for the NFL because I think without fantasy football, the Red Zone channel wouldn't be as popular as it is.
Exactly. Every single week that I couldn't watch my game, I'd be watching the Red Zone channel just to see, is AJ Green on? Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, scoring is usually the most exciting plays in the game.
That is true.
The Red Zone channel is
particularly with AJ
scoring.
Green.
Yeah, and really before I started really getting hardcore into fantasy football a few years ago, I never really cared for the Red Zone channel. I was kind of flip between different games. And also it's perfect for like ADD football fans like myself where I can't watch a game that doesn't involve my team for more than like 30 seconds unless it's like, a really close game. But the Red Zone channel, it basically channel serves for you.
It does.
I love finding like weapons like Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall. Like they always throw off together, and I like the little strategies you put in there.
Yeah. The only problem is when you load up too much because in the league me and Chris were in last year, or a couple of years ago, I inadvertently ended up with the entire Atlanta offense. Like not even trying, it just kind of happened that way, and then which was fine most weeks. But then if in my case, if Atlanta had an off game, my whole team was screwed.
I think I remember that year too. You practically had every Falcon on offense.
Yeah.
And the thing was, it wasn't even like I tried for that to happen. Just as I was drafting, halfway through, I'm like, oh my god, crap.
Yeah,
that'll be something really good for you guys out there if you're following the show and you like fantasy football. When football season starts, we'll be talking about that a lot. I can teach you guys how to beat your friends like I beat Josh this year. So
yeah, well, and I have a fantasy football
maybe you can help me, dude.
Yeah. First thing, Nick, you got to stick with your team all year. That's the one thing.
Yeah, that's true. And that's going to be hard this year with 2 jobs now, but I'm going to try.
Okay.
But it's a lot of fun. You guys, it's another thing you and Neil turned me on to. Plus, it's just something to do for the fun of it. We're not wagering stuff on like those guys in Omaha, Nebraska. We're not forcing the last place person to get a tattoo that they're going to hate for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think we're far enough off the rails. I think we should maybe, get back on topic.
Yeah, I was letting it go. We had a lot of time.
Maybe you want to
I was letting it go. Fantasy football is completely okay to talk about for 6 hours. It's completely okay.
Yeah, we've done it before.
Yeah.
Okay, so
especially since it's March.
It'll be 4 a.m. It'll be like February, and I'll be like, Josh, do you think this guy's worth drafting in 5 months?
Yeah,
we've had
these conversations. I don't know how many times we've just had these long conversations on Facebook about, it'd be like Randall Cobb versus Julio Jones, who bet for next year or something like that.
Yeah, maybe
I was at the Colts training camp in
Yeah.
Anderson, Indiana, and I had like a visor on and stuff, and I was like writing notes. And they're like, "What are you doing?" It was just preparation for my fantasy team. Just jotting down 40 times and stuff.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like,
that's the main reason I moved to Indianapolis, is so I could go to the combine and scout players for my fantasy.
Yeah, like why do you think I watch preseason football games?
Exactly. I watch every
preseason football games.
Who doesn't?
So you can't pay people to watch preseason football games.
Neil, I have to win the championship again for the 4th time.
So also with preseason football, that's why it's part of the reason why I think why NFL is the king, because people they don't care that they understand that after 10 plays it's not real football, but people will like I don't know how many times I found myself watching the 4th quarter of like a Bengals and Jets preseason game I'm just like I just can't not watch.
This guy might
I think the players go all out the most because they're the ones fighting for jobs. Those guys are playing in the 3rd and 4th quarter. The starters are out after 10 plays, but those guys, they're fighting for jobs, so they're going to give it their all. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
So on the topic of preseason football games and rookies, maybe we should move our attention to the NFL Combine that just wrapped up.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of big-name players, like Sam, David Clowney. Josh, that seems to be more your forte if you want to go into some of the Combine numbers.
Yeah, really, I'll just start really from the top. With the quarterbacks, it was kind of interesting because the amount of most of the top prospects, Teddy Bridgewater, Johnny Manziel, a lot of them decided not to go through these different drills, which was kind of well, for a lot of times it's agent stuff. Don't throw with receivers you don't know, and that, which whether you're that it's here or there. Really, with the quarterbacks, I think who the combine helped more than anything was South Florida quarterback Blake Bortles, who a lot of people before even going into the combine, he was being looked at as a potential top 10 pick, and now with just I think he measured it was like 6'4", 6'5". He was like 230. He just his measurables are basically what you want in the NFL quarterback, and just and then with Teddy Bridgewater, the big thing on him is he bulked up to he was like 210 somewhere, but then there's also people close to the Louisville team saying at the end of last year at the end of the last college football season he was like 185 pounds, which only further kind of brought questions about just his durability and whatnot. And then for the 40 times, one that really jumped out to a lot of people was Jadeveon Clowney, who ran it was unofficial 4.47,
which is freaking nuts.
And officially it came out to 4.53 or something like that, but that's still, when you're 6'6", 265 pounds, that is freakish. But
that's just ridiculous. I didn't see it.
Wait a minute, Clowney? That was Clowney's number?
All I saw was Warren Sapp's face.
Yeah, and then you can go on NFL.com and they have They have a simulcast of him running the 40, Colin Kaepernick and Cam Newton, and he's dusting the quarterbacks. It's ridiculous. But which kind of helps.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Those were Clowney's numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy.
But then also, with the freak athlete thing, kind of
monster.
The interesting thing with that, he only put up 23 reps at 225.
Mm-hmm.
But he has long arms and everything like that. But still, it's one of those really interesting. Interesting with the bench. There was a punter from Miami who outbenched Clowney, Jake Matthews, a lot of these top prospects. A punter that he was just putting up freak numbers on the bench.
Yeah, I think the reps and the benching thing isn't as big of a deal with Clowney. If you can get to the quarterback and pull him down with those big arms, that's all that matters. And he can work on the bulking up more thing with his arms.
Also, the big question with that was just his work ethic. How bad do you want it? D Ford basically ripped his technique, basically saying and even Warren Sapp mentioned this when he was talking about Clowney's film, where Clowney. What makes Clowney so interesting as a prospect is some of these other defensive end prospects, Coney Ely, D Ford, they're more technicians. He has freak raw athletic ability, and he really doesn't use if he can learn how just the small intricacies of the position, he could be damn near unstoppable. But because right now he's just going off of God-given ability.
That's just going to take a coach in the front office that know what to do with him and how to motivate him and get him in the right position. Because a line with Watt and Connie would be absurd.
Yeah. But also with that, would it be more absurd than Watt and Mario Williams? Then on the topic of 40 times, I'm looking it up really quick. First, because the offensive linemen, they were putting up some freak numbers too. Taylor Lewan from Michigan ran a 4.8 740. Let's see here. I'm trying to find. I'm blanking on the name off the top of my head, but yeah, and then I know Jake Matthews and whatever his name is from Auburn. I'm completely blanking on his name. They both ran sub 4.8s. It was putting on. And I know Greg Robinson is basically he completely killed the bench. It was I think he put up 30 plus reps or something. No, Jerry Archer, the running back from Kent State, ran a 4.28, which is I think it was really close to Chris Johnson's combine record. He put up in the 20s for bench reps. It was just ridiculous.
So, do you have any specific players that you guys want your team to go after here in the combine talk? Josh, is there anybody that you think seems really appealing? For the Falcons?
Someone that I really didn't know much about before, the combine and all the pre-draft stuff, was Khalil Mack. And just as I've just kind of studied him a little bit, looked at his combine numbers and just the different things I've seen from him, he's really interesting as just the big thing with him and Anthony Barr, the two 3-4 linebackers that I've looked at, the ones that are kind of like the consensus top two. It's kind of not exactly the same, but similar to the way different position entirely, but just the debate whether with Khalil Mack, he's a finished product. You know what he is as an outside linebacker. Anthony Barr from UCLA, he went to UCLA as I think it was a tight end or a fullback, so he's still learning how to play on the defensive side of the ball, and which is kind of yet to project with him. And really, the two of them, I think, are the two that I'm really looking at, and also just each of the top 3 tackles, because we're watching the Falcons. I'm pretty sure I could have gotten through that offensive line. And just looking at Greg Robinson, it was the big thing with Greg. The top 2 consensus are Greg Robinson and Jake Matthews. And Greg Robinson's kind of just a big mauler that's just like, he's just nasty. Whereas Jake Matthews, who has obviously has an NFL pedigree, he's more of a tactician. And also the big thing with him was one of the big detractions on him is just the Johnny Manziel stuff, where Johnny Manziel ran around a lot. But some of that stuff was with Johnny Manziel was more on Johnny Manziel than just his his playmaking ability, more so than any deficiencies along the offensive line.
Correct. Yeah, that's another interesting guy is Manziel. You hear like people talking about Houston. Oh, he's Houston going to take Manziel, and then now it seems like Clowney with the freak numbers he put up at the combine.
And is there a player that you guys can remember in the draft that has a wider range of opinions as far as the draft, experts than Johnny Manziel? Like everyone either, from what I've heard, everyone's like, they love him. Top 5 pick, future Hall of Famer damn near. And there's a guy, I want to say it was Ron Jaworski, said he wouldn't touch him in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, number 1 overall pick or 3rd round pick is what I've been hearing.
Yeah, I found
the same
myself.
sort of stuff we were hearing about Tebow, isn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't number 1 overall pick with Tebow. It was first round pick. But.
Yeah, but it was just interesting. Like I find myself with Manziel somewhere in the middle.
I'd take him in the first round.
Yeah, like it really.
If some people have a high enough grade on him that they think he's worth a top 5 pick at some point, he's got to be worth a first round pick.
Yeah, and like I've talked about this with me, you, and Chris, me, and you have talked about this before. I feel when you're a team that needs a quarterback, if you believe in a guy, take him in the first round. Shouldn't matter where. Like say what you want about guys like Jake Locker and Christian Ponder and Blaine Gabbert. Those teams believe in those guys enough to draft them in the first round. If you think a guy's going to be your franchise quarterback, you take him in the first round. It shouldn't matter.
Exactly. It doesn't matter where you're picking from. Or if you think maybe that guy will slip, just maybe. If he's your guy and he's the guy you have faith you can build your franchise around, you take him where you are. Like Cleveland reportedly, and this is all hearsay. Cleveland reportedly having interest in Derek Carr. If that's really their guy, yes, they could get him in the second round. But if that's really their guy and they really want him, take him where you are.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter.
Because the franchise quarterback is the most important position in sports.
Yeah. A perfect example of that, too, was back in 2011, everyone was crucifying Carolina for taking Cam Newton as the number 1 pick, but they believed him, and clearly it's worked out.
Absolutely.
His first 2 games were kind of an indication of that.
Well, it didn't throw for, it was 400-plus yards in, his first 2 games. It was he was on pace to, break every NFL passing record after, first 4 games.
Yeah, he was.
Also, with drafting quarterbacks too, it's kind of you have to walk a razor's edge because I think if you miss on a franchise quarterback in the first round, high in the first round, you set your franchise back 3 to 5 years. Just look at Jacksonville. They were, I believe the year they drafted Blaine Gabbert, they were 8, 9, and 7. They just missed the playoffs, and they drafted Blaine Gabbert. It was an epic swing and miss, and now they have been one of the worst teams over the last 3 years.
Can't argue there.
Yeah, Nick, the resident Jaguar fan of the house. Would you rather have?
Yeah, we do exist, believe it or not.
Quarterback, Nick.
A 12-year.
If we can get a good quarterback in the second round, I want a Clowney. But if he goes, I want a quarterback, obviously.
Yeah.
If Clowney is still there at number 3, I'd say you go for it, and we could probably still get a good.
Like A.J. McCarron or something.
Or maybe Carr. I heard that Gus Bradley was impressed with Derek Carr too.
He was.
And Jacksonville, honestly, kind of off topic, they're one of those teams that I could see going from being really bad to really good in a hurry.
Yeah, they're due for a good season.
Yeah, especially if Justin Blackmon can ever, stay on the field for more than 4 games.
Yeah, Blackman's a beast.
Yeah, his numbers should be on the field, not the breathalyzer. I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
just perhaps.
Good observation.
What can I say? I'm not afraid to knock even my own team.
Yeah, and like when you're like, and when you're in a situation like over with the Jaguars, if you can't make fun of your own team.
I don't make fun of my team.
It's how I stay sane.
Yeah.
I don't make fun of my team. It's just how I stay sane.
It's just how I stay sane. Yeah, like just watching the Falcons this year, if I couldn't make fun of them, I would have blown my brains out.
You gotta be able to make fun of
I know earlier you said that you thought you could get through the Falcons' offensive line. You could probably breeze past the Jaguars' offensive line, Josh.
We should have Manny on here. Thinking of bad offensive lines. I'm not even going to say anything about my guys giving up 50 sacks on the year because Manny's line was even worse.
Oh, yeah, the Dolphins. Yeah, I think he mentioned that last week, too. Yeah. The Dolphins single-handedly made the Bills the best pass rush in the NFL this year.
Yeah, well
they did.
The Dolphins when you had, the left guard making fun of the left tackle, and then you had the center getting questioned in the murder case. You wonder why they couldn't protect Ryan Tannehill.
Tough love.
Comes down to tough love.
Somebody's sister is not tough love. Extorting $15,000 a piece from a guy is not tough love.
Yeah, that Wells report, I didn't read all of it, but I've read excerpts from it. Richie Incognito, he needs Jesus. He has some issues.
You heard what happened to him recently?
Him taking a bat to his own Ferrari is not an indication.
Yeah, like
insurance, man.
He has some issues.
Yeah. Hopefully he can get them taken care of, though, because if he can get past it, I think he's actually a good player. He's a beast. He can get past it. I think he could come back and possibly become one of the better players.
Yeah, the really interesting thing with that, too, I was really I was talking to one of my friends, really, between Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito, who's more likely to catch on with the NFL team this year?
Jonathan Martin.
Yeah,
I would say Martin too.
Yeah,
Andrew Luck is already speaking up for him. The Colts need some help on their line. They played together in college,
and I believe they were roommates in college. Also, if you look back to just 2011, when he was going through the draft process, he was being touted as a potential first-round pick, and he was a high. I'm not sure exactly where he went, but I know he went high second round. So he has the Stanford pedigree. So, and then Incognito was just a basket case.
Yeah, that's one name for him.
Yeah.
Guy's freaking nuts.
And then he put out those cryptic tweets after everything was coming out, and I was fearing for my own safety just reading them.
It's good.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to another NFL topic. The NFL has increased the salary cap $10 million from $123 million to $133 million. Do you guys think it'll make a big difference on the how much teams spend on their free agents, or do you think it's a marginal? I think it's significant enough.
An extra $10 million to spend, yeah.
Especially since the last few years,
agreed.
The cap and
salaries have been going through the roof.
Yeah, I wish my company would expand its salary cap too.
Yeah. Ever since I think 2009, I think was the last year the cap went up, and really it's been kind of stay. I mean, it would go up a few $100,000 here and there, but it stayed more or less flat over the last few years. And from a business standpoint, it was kind of not a business, but from a team structure standpoint, because I mean, quarterback salaries kept going up and up, and the salary cap wasn't going up at all. So it kind of was putting these teams in kind of tough situations. Like if you look at there was the Joe Flacco contract, and a lot of these big contracts for these quarterbacks kind of crippled the front offices.
Right. Yeah, I think it'll be nice where you have a situation where teams have the teams that have a lot of needs, like a lot of smaller needs, are really going to appreciate the extra $10 million more than a team that just needs, one or two guys.
Or if you're a team like Oakland, who already ended the old salary cap going into this offseason, had like $60 million in cap space, now they can go out and sign the entire league if they wanted to, damn near.
So let's be honest, it's like New England Patriots or Denver Broncos, do they need more money? I mean, really, come on.
But I think when you're a team like Oakland, and these teams, Oakland, Jacksonville, these lower end teams with lots of cap space, it's kind of for that when you're a bad team too, kind of going back to the baseball, kind of make a baseball comparison. With the Mariners who signed Robinson Cano, they basically had to back up a Brinks truck. When you're a bad team, you have to offer these free agents way more than sometimes way more than their market value, just to get them to listen.
Just to have a weapon on your team.
Yeah, to lure them to a place like Oakland versus like, I could go to Denver for less money, or I could go to Oakland for a lot of money, and that's how you make your team improved. You have to bring in the good players.
I could go to Oakland for some more money, or I could go to Denver and win games.
So that's kind of also it's kind of, I think it's a case by case basis, kind of like with Buffalo and when they I think they signed Mario Williams for right under to $100 million. I think it was like $98 million total or something like that. When basically a lot of people, like his agent, everyone said, it was all about the money.
When you're older, you chase rings. When you're younger, it's straight cash, homie.
I don't know.
Nice Vikings reference there. Kind of I think it was on Pro Football, on the Pro Football Talk show on NBC Sports. I can't remember. I think it was Ross Tucker basically said when you're an NFL player, you get a chance for, because the average NFL career is 3 years, and you get basically in your NFL career, you will have a shot at one big money contract. You cash in when you can, because the NFL career of all major sports careers is the shortest. So you cash in when you can, and then after you cash in, that's when you start ring chasing.
That's why Greg Hardy was trying to get paid.
Yeah, he basically told the Panthers, "You want to win the Super Bowl, pay me a boatload of money."
They're like, "We'll pay you a boatload of money for this year."
These franchise tags, I think that.
That's a lot of money. Franchise tags are freaking huge.
Yeah, I think it's franchise tags.
They're monstrous, man.
Yeah, because
they're epic.
Yeah, because I'm not 100% sure on how exactly the salary cap and franchise tags work, but I believe it's the average of the top 5 guys at a position, their base salary over the last 5 years or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, any wide receiver, they can it's franchise tag. They can thank Mike Wallace for the pay increase.
He got a pretty fat contract from the Dolphins a year ago.
Yeah, I believe his cap hit this year, $16.5 million.
Yeah, my dad's a Steelers fan, and as soon as Mike Wallace became a free agent, he said, "I don't want to re-sign him. He's a one-dimensional receiver who runs one route, and whatever stupid-ass team that signs him is going to end up paying him a fuck ton of money." And
the other thing is with Wallace, and I'm really glad he's gone, is half of his numbers came from playing backyard ball with Ben. It wasn't even running a route.
Yeah.
It was, the play's going to break down, keep running. I'll get you the ball.
Antonio Brown just plugged in and put up the numbers anyway. It didn't even matter.
That's true, he did. It's like Mike Wallace.
Style.
He's probably a more complete receiver.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I remember on NFL Network and ESPN, there was always the debates before the season: is Antonio Brown a number one receiver in the NFL? Clearly, he is.
What can Brown do for you?
True.
Horny ass.
He was on my fantasy team. I made that reference every week. It's fine.
Yeah.
Better than the Tyler Thigpen thing that he was doing every time Thigpen made a complete pass a couple of years ago.
Hey, Thigpen would have been a franchise quarterback in Minnesota.
All 10 of them?
He would not have.
All 10 complete passes?
All 10, right?
He kept making the pig squealing noise every time Thigpen completed a pass.
Oh boy.
Hey, we gave the Chiefs our leftovers, so they gave us theirs. Matt Castle.
End every conversation. Matt Castle.
Glad he's gone.
Yeah.
See you, nerd. I'm really hoping that people get skeptical enough about Bridgewater that he slips to number 8 to Minnesota, because that's my guy. I would love the Vikings to get Bridgewater, most NFL-ready quarterback of the group.
Yeah, I'll say about Bridgewater.
What's the current mock draft look like?
I want him nowhere near Tampa Bay. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't think Tampa drafts a quarterback. They like Glennon enough to wait. They need other stuff. I don't think Tampa I think if the Raiders don't take Sammy Watkins, I can't see Tampa passing on him.
Oh, no way.
They need another receiver to help out Vincent Jackson first.
What's the mock draft looking like right now? Have there been any updates on it?
It just depends on who you look at, because every Daniel Jeremiah, Mayock doesn't really do mock drafts, but Jeremiah, Kuiper, every other day it changes with them. So
yeah. Pretty much the same things are consistent, though. They say the Vikings need a quarterback or a pass rusher. The Falcons need a pass rusher or an offensive lineman. The Jaguars need Clowney or a quarterback,
Or a wide receiver, a running back.
An offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, a linebacker, a
secondary.
A kicker, a punter, a fullback, a water guy.
Shelby's a good kicker. Come on.
Water boy.
They need fans.
Yeah. They need to draft fans.
That's pretty much the only time they show up, because once the season starts, you see more tarps on Everbank Field than you do fans.
Hey, I heard the Browns tried to trade the 49ers for their head coach, and when that didn't work, they tried to trade the Seahawks for the 12th man.
Oh.
They needed people to come to the games.
Will you give us Scruffy?
Well, we're just trying to give picks away. We're gonna blow them anyway. So, but no one did it. All right. Well, we're gonna move on to a more depressing topic. Aaron Hernandez in the news again for another terrible reason. Was in solitary confinement for over 24 hours. Finally let out. They let him into the prison. He wasn't even there for a few hours, and he attacked a fellow inmate that he recognized. They had to move him back to isolation after the fight. It's absurd. The guy's crazy. Makes me kind of sad because I was a big fan of his at Florida. And,
you are.
It's really unfortunate. Like, the guy has so many demons you just didn't know about. All this came out of nowhere. He's like a crazy murderer. Like, whoa.
Screw him, man.
And literally nowhere, because you heard nothing about him except for his play on the field until all this happened.
No, he was never even really in trouble. It just went one day. Oh, by the way, Hernandez is in a gang and kills people. Like,
the thing about that too is with him, the murder thing. Aaron Hernandez had signed like a $60 million contract, where it was the year before. You can't pay a hitman to do this for you. Like, how bad is this dude piss you off that you wouldn't be the one to pull the trigger?
How about, like, you enter the NFL, you make all this money, and you're still gang affiliated?
Right.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
No kidding.
Sometimes it's hard to get away from that kind of life. Like, even if you want to get away, if you're like stuck, what if they come after you? Well, you're not leaving. You're in the game.
The thing is also with the gang lifestyle is basically it's
on a computer, like
you hire a guard. Dude makes millions.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously, you just with I'm obviously don't need to get into like beating a dead horse, but you read all the stuff around the murder case. It was like this had went all the way back to when he was at Florida. It just was kind of covered up.
Yeah, you never heard anything about him at Florida.
Yeah, well, Florida, to be fair, under Urban Meyer, everyone but Tim Tebow was arrested.
We kept things on the DL really well.
And now you've got guys getting arrested for
breaking a bar fight. Like, did you guys ever read that story about Tim Tebow breaking up a fight in a bar between Aaron Hernandez and someone else?
Oh.
I would have paid to see Tim Tebow in a bar.
Yeah. I imagine all these days, like, in the locker room, like, all of his teammates are thugs, and Tebow's just, like, telling everyone to, like, pray to God and all this stuff, and they're like, yeah, Tim. As soon as Tim leaves the locker room, they just all burst out, and they're all just thugs again, like, whoa.
They're bumping the rap music and screaming and cursing at each other. He's sitting in the corner praying and saying Hail Marys,
I think that they keep it all, like, under wraps for Tim, and as soon as he leaves the room, they can't do it to him. They can't break his heart. As soon as he leaves the room, it just all bursts back out.
As soon as he leaves, Aaron Hernandez pulls out his gun collection and
I'm gonna murder a fool. Like, come on.
And then he bought Bubblicious bubblegum before too. That's gangster.
Yeah, right. What a dumbass.
Yeah, but actually, though, with the solitary confinement thing, maybe was something that you might. I mean, obviously, I don't have any information, but maybe he's just doing this to like protect himself from the general population.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can't put somebody who's so high profile into the general pop because he's going to be a big ass target.
And especially since he's and then because also with the prison gangs being so prevalent, he was known to be gang affiliated. Maybe he was doing it to protect himself.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, it said that he was walking with the guard and like he saw someone that he recognized and immediately attacked the guy. So I don't know if it's like maybe it's like a rival gang member that like went after him or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
He saw the guy and immediately lunged for him. Like,
yeah, so really, with just this whole story, really, with the way law enforcement and prison stuff is, we really don't have much to go off of just because of a lot of these like cases are still pending and everything, so we don't really have much information. A lot of it's just speculation.
Mhm.
When we get more information regarding that, I'm sure we'll discuss it on another episode.
Oh, no, definitely.
Well, okay. Staying on the NFL topic, there was a small thing on ESPN a few days ago. I wanted to just bring it up. It said that Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson, who does not during the off season, he loves to still be in the news. He went to the Rangers training camp and whatnot.
He at their spring training.
Yeah, he's at their spring training. He's not going to do any at bats or anything for them. He doesn't want to risk getting injured. But, he said he wants to own his own pro team, whether it's a football team or a baseball team. If you guys were pro athletes, would you want to own your own team too? Would you want to try to dip into the owner thing? I guess he's really interested in taking it really seriously. He wants to learn everything he can. That's actually one of the things he's doing. Picking the owner's brain, and he does it with the Seahawks owner too. Apparently, he really has expertise in that field. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's smart for him too, just because, like I mentioned, NFL careers are short, and just even if say Russell Wilson goes on to has a 15-year NFL career, 20-year NFL career, he still will be in his late 30s when his career is over, and he's got to figure out something to do with the rest of his life anyway. And since he seems to really love the game of football and baseball, it would be smart for him to kind of stay in that realm, and it could be potentially a way for him to really make a good living for the rest of his life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you guys could own a team in any of the four major sports, which sport and which team would it be? We'll start with Nick, who's a caller. Nick?
I'm another dumbass will say Yankees or Lakers.
Nick? You there?
I think it would, in all honesty, be my all-time favorite team. I'd own the Mets, because unlike the Wilpons, it would actually do something for them to win.
That's good. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
What about you, Neil?
Yankees easily.
Yeah, I figured. It'd be nice. And I would say, put it out there. Try to leave the money aspect out of it. Obviously, certain teams make more money, but just what team would you enjoy running the most? What's Josh? What about you? Falcons?
Yeah, probably, but just because it's also they're the one team I consider myself passionate about, and also I think just because that's the sport I'm the most knowledgeable in, so I'd probably be most successful in and running an NFL team because I know the most about football. So really, if from a clearly monetary standpoint, I'd love to own a European soccer team. Those teams make money.
He's in it for the cash.
Straight cash.
Yeah.
Rich and don't write checks.
Craig, what about you?
I'd probably just own the Giants. I would go for the Giants.
The San Francisco Giants or the New York Giants?
Oh, the New York Giants. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I forgot.
That's a thing? Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, they're both pretty good.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd own the Vikings. I'd put every bit of everything I had into making sure that they get a championship.
Yeah. The thing here with the Falcons is just, really, the real money's probably in soccer or baseball, though.
Well, we don't have a lot of time left. We're going about 6 minutes left. One thing I did want to talk about: Wichita State finished the regular season 31-0. Now a lot of debate has arisen on the internet lately about did they play anyone. They had a cream puff schedule. I know Josh feels really strongly about this, so I'm going to go to him. Josh, do you think Wichita State deserves to be the real #1 team in the country?
Yeah, obviously do. Sure, Wichita State didn't exactly play in the ACC or anything, but you go an entire season without losing a game, you're still damn good. Especially when with Wichita State in the last half of the season, they had the biggest target on their back, and you get every team's best every night, and to go 31-0, you deserve to be the #1 team going into your conference tournament.
Well, I will argue that Florida won 21 in a row. And they play in a much tougher conference, which is why they're #1. Where is Wichita State ranked specifically? Do you know?
Number 2.
They got to be at least 5. Top 5. They're 2?
Yeah.
They are number 2. Yeah.
I may come off biased, but I do think winning 21 in a row, a 10-game difference in a harder conference is probably impressive enough.
I'm saying just winning any an extended winning streak in anything is impressive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Now, on that note, I don't follow much college basketball, but the school, what was it, Wichita State? They went 31-0 on the season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you said Florida at one point won 21
Florida is currently, they won their 21st in a row tonight. 21st game.
Billy Donovan can coach him some basketball.
Yeah.
You're kind of splitting hairs. Either way, it's unreal, but I don't know anything about college basketball really, but Florida's conference is that much tougher to win in.
Yeah, the SEC is a lot stronger. It's one of the top conferences. So Wichita State plays in like a lower tier conference.
Yeah, they're a mid-major.
Yeah, they're a mid-major.
So it's kind of like last year. Someone asked Tracy McGrady like whether Miami's win streak was more impressive than Houston's, and obviously his answer would be skewed. But McGrady said the Rockets 22 straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to take into consideration, especially at least in like pro basketball, every team is technically good. It's the professionals, but when you're playing in college, a mid-major versus a Titan conference, like that's a big difference. And there's a small difference in 10 games. Not to take away anything from Wichita State going into Phoenix.
Oh, no.
That's amazing, but
I think those are Wichita State and Florida, the two consensus top two teams going into.
Yeah, no one would disagree with that.
Yeah, no. Well, maybe Virginia. They won the ACC outright today when they beat Syracuse.
Yeah, you said there was a questionable officiating with that, right?
Yeah, there were just some I didn't watch the game. I watched a little bit of it, but just from some of the stuff I was reading online and stuff, the ACC officiating this year has been inconsistent, to say the least. There, basically, to put it into perspective, their ACC basketball refs are the equivalent of Pac-12 football refs.
Oof.
Yeah, it's that bad. It's ridiculous.
It's unfortunate for Syracuse.
Yeah.
They lost to Duke. They were number one in the country. Now they're losing to Duke and Virginia. Now they're on the outside looking in. That's unfortunate.
You ain't first, you're last.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here. We're gonna get some plugs in. Do you guys have anything you want to plug on the show? You can go ahead and do that. Neil, do you have anything this week you would like to plug? Neil, right. Nick, call or hell, why not? Nick, do you have anything you want to plug?
Just once again, thanks for having me on the show, and hopefully I can get back soon.
All right, man. Appreciate you calling in.
All right, man.
And for following the show. Just spread the word, guys. Josh, do you have anything you'd like to plug this week?
Besides my Twitter at Gomez_time76. No, not really.
Okay. Craig, go to you.
Yeah, I would like to thank everybody for listening to the show here on Mega Powers Radio. Really appreciate the support, and I also do another show on Mega Powers Radio called Geek Speak. We talk about everything geek culture, news stories. We do all that stuff. It's another live call-in show Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you'd like to call in and into that show, you're more than welcome to. We're taking a week off next week, but we'll be on the following Thursday. So yeah, definitely catch us there, and catch us on Fanboys Anonymous. You could get our archived versions of all the shows, of this show, that show, anything that's on Mega Powers Radio. Really, we're also on iTunes, Stitcher. Definitely check us out there. If you want to get a hold of me, Craig Kellerman on Facebook, or if you want to get my Twitter, Craig Kells, KELLZ at Twitter, and that's all I got for my plugs.
All right, I got a list, so let's be prepared. I want to plug all of our brothers and sisters out there who are doing the work, plugging Sports Talk Weekly. We want to, give it out to them too. Fanboys Anonymous, SmarkOutMoment.com, wrestling site if you guys are interested in checking that out. Check out Smack Talk. There's their podcast they do every week on Friday nights. We've got a rollofthedice.net, ran by my friend Andrew Zavala. I write Pokemon TCG strategies for that now. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/sportstalkweekly. You can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com, Sport Talk Weekly. No S in sports. They don't give you that many characters. Thanks for checking out the show again. For the next 3 weeks, the show will be on Tuesday nights instead of Saturdays. I'm going to be out of town Tuesday's the only night I can do it. If you guys want to check out the show, remember we'll be on Tuesdays those weeks. We'll love to have you checking us out again. Hopefully we have better sports weeks. Not the coming up Tuesday, the Tuesday following. So for the next 3 weeks, that'll be what we're doing. So you guys go check that out. Thanks for listening again. We'll be here after these 3 weeks. We'll be here every Saturday. It's great to have you guys listening to us. Keep spreading the word. You see any of your sports fan friends, give them the number. Tell them to call into the show. It's a good way to kill a Saturday night if you got nothing to do. So thanks for listening, and take it easy out there.
Stay frosty.
Stay frosty.